Hi everyone, because today, the 13th of September, is Dante's 703rd death anniversary. I'm going to be doing a video version of the blog post which I just published today. I have done many Dantean videos over the past 3 years. You guys can check out my playlist called All About Dante and the Divine Comedy, and I do hope to finally start doing more Dantean videos again regularly in future. But he's just a subject I have so much absolute love and respect, admiration, passion, everything about. In the 100 Days of Dante, like worldwide readathon sponsored by Baylor College and a bunch of other universities and colleges just recently started up, so you guys can join in. It's so much fun. And so this is going to be talking about why Dante has always felt like a dear friend, more than just a writer. And also the death anniversary date. Some people say 13th, some people say 14th, and that's because he died so late, so deep into the night. Being the kind of person I am, I like to believe he died during the border between the two days when they were like changing places, the end of the 13th and the simultaneous beginning of the 14th. And so let's just start talking about why Dante has always felt like a very dear friend when I'm reading his works, no matter what they are. From the time I went back to the Divine Comedy in the spring of 2004, after putting it on hiatus for a couple of months on account of frustration with all those footnotes constantly interrupting my reading, plus the annoying, distracting, faux archaisms so many translators used back in the day, like trying to make anyone who didn't speak English sound like they spoke Elizabethan English when those languages never had equivalent grammar and pronouns. And so anyway, since then, Dante has always felt like a dear personal friend I have a deep connection with, not just another beloved writer. And the only other of my favorite writers I feel that way about is Hermann Hesse. He also feels like a very close, dear friend. Every time I read one of his books or stories, it's like reconnecting with someone. He's just like talking to me so personally. It's just a really special, deep bond, connection kind of relationship you have when someone is more than just a favorite writer. Let me know down in the comments if you guys feel that way about any of your own favorite writers. Reason number one. Dante addresses the reader 21 times in the Divine Comedy, 7 times in each canticle. Well, this was a common literary device in the old days. I'm sure you can easily think of, in particular, the 19th, early 20th century English language novels that do this all the time. Oh, reader, can you imagine this? Now, reader, just think about this, or just other whatever kinds of devices they do that with. It feels so much more personal because Dante wrote in the first person. He's speaking directly to us and treating us like equal partners along on the same journey. And for example, one of the most well-known ones is at the beginning of Paradiso, when he encourages or urges the readers, oh, now, okay, if you're not like in it for the long haul, if you're not prepared for this really deep, heavy, serious theology coming your way, like turn back in your little boat, don't follow along with me. But if you've got the guts and the courage and the soul to do it, like learn, become more spiritually enlightened, come along with me in your little bark. And another time in Inferno, he says, oh, reader, you can just imagine how terrified I felt. And in Purgatorio, he's saying, now, reader, if you're worried because this is going to happen to you in purgatory because you've committed whatever sin and you decide to turn back from repentance because you're scared of it, oh, don't worry, it'll be okay. Like, purgatory won't last forever. It'll be over eventually, and think of the great reward waiting at the end. And even if you do have to toil in purgatory for whatever sin you committed in for like centuries or millennia or however really long time, it will only last as long as the judgment day, and then it'll be all fine. So he's basically like talking to us like we're his friends, encouraging us, even though he's like never met so many of us. Obviously he didn't meet most of his readers, and those of us who have lived in the 700 plus years since he passed away never obviously met him personally. But it's just like he's reaching out across the centuries to personally connect with us, like he's a friend from the beyond. It's just such a really special thing. Number two, from the very first line, we're made to feel like fellow pilgrims. Dante wrote nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita, in the middle of the journey of our life. It's not his unique journey alone. And that was when I started looking at other translations, I realized that Lawrence Binion's version of the first line, I mean, obviously it's like technically correct most of the way, but it doesn't really have the same like feeling so many other translators do. It's just like midway life's journey, not midway our life's journey. So it feels a little bit less personal in that way. But obviously, the Binyon translation was the first one which I ever read, and that did make me have the connection with Dante, despite many of his really like old-fashioned insistences on these things. Number 3, rather than an epic poem about gods, goddesses, and larger-than-life heroes, many of whom are mythological, not having any historical like shreds of existence at all, Dante writes about himself and regular people, all full of flaws, and he does, of course, include a number of mythological characters as well. Back in the Middle Ages, many people just there was a lot of like, confusion or whatever. I don't know if confusion is the right word, but just there was like more of a gray line between like what was historical and what was like purely mythological or mytho-historical or semi-legendary, purely legendary, whatever. So he treated a lot of these characters from mythology and ancient literature as though they were real. But again, there's a cat walking across the street. I think that's my buddy Nubby with the short tail. Anyway, he treats even these like, characters which we know now to be fictional as like they're full of flaws. They're like regular people despite their heroic origin. So he's basically saying like we're all human beings here. I'm not treating anyone like they're greater than anyone else, even if they did wonderful, like awesome things in their lifetimes. Number 4, Dante also shows us the best of human nature alongside those very real sins, mistakes, and flaws, as I was just saying. He's quite honest about his own weaknesses and struggles, which we can all relate to. Number 5, we get to know Dante as a fully rounded human being. Though Dante the Pilgrim is technically a fictional character, and not the same as Dante the poet whose writing is, he puts so much of his real life into his story. There's a fine line between his fictional and real selves, and of course La Vita Nuova, which I highly recommend you guys read before jumping into the Divine Comedy, because it's so much shorter, more lightweight, and it really forms a good background understanding for things. It's an autobiographical story, and so he's basically writing totally as himself there, and just in all the other various books and treatises and poems and stuff he writes, that he's his whole heart and soul and mind, he's putting it out there. And I'm particular, I have a medieval rap battle, a medieval style rap battle, I think, or a medieval rap battle in A Stone Woman, I believe, that was called talking about the 6 poems he and his buddy Forese Donate traded back and forth. They're really, really funny. He gives this portrayal of someone who's not lofty-minded and serious intellectual all the time. He's just like a fun young man who likes trading barbs with his buddies, going down to the pub, insulting people in funny ways, just living in the real world. And the Stone Woman, the Rime Petrose cycle. Wow, that is like not the Dante many people think of when they think of the supreme poet. It's like, and particularly the last one in that cycle, it's like so like BDSM even type of lyrics, or not lyrics, lines, verses. It's just, wow, it gives a whole like new idea of him. So basically he's just putting who he is into all of his poems and so many, everything that he ever wrote. It's just a really, really like special thing that helps us like get to know him better than perhaps many other writers. Number 6, rather than projecting the image of a serious, humorless intellectual and lofty-minded poet at all times, as I was just saying off script, Dante can be quite funny. I laughed out loud when he throws shade at Virgil in Canto 14 of Inferno by reminding him of a previous failure. And I, my master, you who overcame all opposition, except for those tough demons who came to meet us at the gate of Dis. There's also the opening of Canto 22 of Inferno, right after Devil Malacoda, as Longfellow puts it, made a trumpet of his rump. Dante reflects on the various battle cries and jousting calls he's heard. But I never saw cavalry or infantry, or ships that sail by landmarks or by stars, signal to set off by such strange bugling. Number 7. Not only did Dante choose to write in the vernacular to reach the common people who wouldn't have used Latin, and it also made it easier for them to memorize the whole poem or big chunks of it and sing it and pass it along that way, he also wasn't shy about using some quite earthy, vulgar language. The lower in hell we go, the coarser the language becomes. What person has never used a single curse word or uncouth expression? Even I, who prefer to keep my language as like PG-13, like higher, like stronger PG as possible, at least in the English language. There are still some words I use. I don't like only use like euphemisms or prim and proper expressions. I do use a couple of like fairly mild curse words. So most people don't make a habit of using prim and proper words like buttocks, flatulated, and excrement in their daily lives. Number 8. He alludes to his real life in many lines, such as the difficult relationship he had with his father. And obviously this is, you might not, probably won't get it if you don't know a lot about his personal, real, historical life or haven't widely read him. But when you do like get to lines in the Divine Comedy or of other of his works which are clearly alluding to his like real beliefs and problems and the things that happen in his life, it just feels so much more like personal and meaningful. For example, when you're listening to a song by someone, of course, like a good like songwriter, rapper, singer doesn't need to like spill out his or her whole life in the song, and you shouldn't have to know all about his or her own like life out of the studio to appreciate and like and understand whatever their songs. But like knowing, having that like personal like information connection makes it so much more meaningful when you get to certain lines. Oh wow, he's really talking about his personal life. Or oh, because I was reading things she wrote about her, upbringing or her relationships in a magazine or her memoirs or something. Oh, wow, that's a connection to that. And it's kind of like a little bit of a secret between, I guess, the super fans or people who have done a lot of outside reading. It's just like really a lovely connection having that with Dante. Dante isn't talking in the abstract about, for example, pursuing a calling that most speaks to your heart despite what other people are trying to mold and shape you into. That's definitely, this is, I think, in like 5 or 6 or so, fairly early in Paradiso. He's talking about, oh, some people are meant to be scholars and some like a monk or a clergy person, and others are in the trades or others are writers. But don't do that because people are pressing you to do it or because you think you're supposed to do it or carrying on the family business. You should always follow your heart and do what you want. And that obviously seems like he's talking about his father and maybe other family members, his stepmother not preferring him, to not really, not, I'm stumbling for the word, not having a preference for him, approving, that's the word I was struggling for, not approving of him, like pursuing literature and studying philosophy and being a full-time poet and scholar rather than doing a trade or making in the capitalist big bucks or the floor. And so that's really a lovely, like, deeper meaning connection. I'm sorry if I'm preambling, but it's just when you feel that connection with someone through their writing and knowing about their personal life, it's just that much more like meaningful and special. Number 9, Dante's lucky number. He comes right out and tells us about himself so we can get to know him better, like his pride at being a Gemini and how the sin he struggled with most was pride. He says, oh, I totally know I'm going to be back on the terrace of purgatory for the prideful, like being forced to like carry that big boulder on my shoulders because I struggle with pride. But oh, I'm such an awesome, wonderful person. Aren't I great? And then like in La Vita Nuova, he'll say, oh, to praise oneself excessively is a terrible sin and morally reprehensible, but I'm totally doing it anyway by any other name. And he also makes it clear in no uncertain terms over and over again. 9 was his lucky number, so it's just basically like a friend telling us all about himself. Number 10, he puts so much emotion into his writing. I can viscerally feel his poignant longing and love for Beatrice, his despair at how his life has unraveled, his great love for Virgil, how close he came to taking his own life, his yearning for Florence, the pain of exile. Number 11, my lucky number. Who can't relate to the story of someone getting so badly off track in his life, no idea how he lost the way, and sinking to the lowest, saddest, ugliest, most hopeless place possible. Sometimes we have to plummet to that low, sad place before we can start rising back up through happier, more hopeful, more beautiful places and emerge better, stronger people who fully appreciate everything we have and are capable of. And as I have said in many prior videos and blog posts, even though Dante left us over 700 years ago now, he feels like so very much like a contemporary almost. Of course, he was fully a product of the Middle Ages, but it's like he has one foot in the Middle Ages and one foot in the modern era, because like so many of his like sensibilities and thought processes and beliefs, they just feel so much like relevant to us, not at all like we would expect in the Middle Ages. For example, his treatment of women and religious minorities and gay or bisexual men, or just like so many other things throughout the poem you would never expect a medieval person at all. And there's that belief, you're probably familiar with it, as long as a person is never forgotten, as long as his or her name is still being said and remembered, that person never really dies. And like it says in Canto 2 of Inferno, which I have still yet to get back to memorizing all the way through. I think I'm about halfway through. Unfortunately, put it on hiatus a bunch of times. So anyway, when Virgil is reporting to Dante what Beatrice said to him, summoning him, like telling him to get Dante, I'm terrified my friend, who is no friend of fortune, may be on the wrong path, and it might almost be too late to get to him. And she's telling Virgil about his fame that's enduring in the world for as long as the world exists. And now we feel that about Dante as well. O anima cortese mantuana, di qui la fama ancor nel mondo dura, e durerà quanto il mondo lontana. Oh, courteous Mantuan spirit, of whose ancient fame in the world endures and will endure as long as world there is. So, that's like really life imitating art, art imitating life. Now we feel the same way about Dante, even though like he's closer to us than Virgil was to him. And like someday they'll both be so far away from us, but they won't really feel far away at all, because like we still speak their names and like love and honor their writing and such like that. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know down in the comments, what writers do you feel are kind of like personal friends when you're reading them, and why do you feel that way? How much of Dante's work have you read? What Dantean topics would you like to suggest for me to do in the future? I really do appreciate seeing comments from you guys, and what like writers do you like love and admire the way I love and admire Dante, like in any language or in any era at all. I just want to get to know my subscribers and viewers a little bit more. So I will see you guys again very soon. Thanks again for watching. Bye.